Hi, and welcome to our final week of Great Expectations, Exodus and Exile. The sermon series we've been looking at throughout since the new year as a build up to our walk into Easter. And we've looked at the story, this amazing story that is celebrated in Passover, which we will be celebrating on Maundy Thursday. We'll be doing a kind of reenactment. We'll just be eating together, remembering the story of the exodus of a group of people who were in slavery, who were taken out of slavery and taken into the promised land. But we're finishing on a final week looking at covenant, which is an odd one, kind of, in a way, because it seems to kind of just be we've got the story of the Exodus, we've got the kind of that happening, but where does covenant fit in? Where does the big blessing fit in within that? Apologies for the dog shouting in the background. But the story of the covenant starts in creation, where God creates Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden and an establishment of a relationship with the Creator God. But a perfect environment, but the reality is Adam and Eve didn't embrace the reality of what was put upon them to be the overseers, the representations of Him in creation. They didn't subdue the animals, they weren't fruitful, and so that led to the fall and a break in that relationship between humanity and God. But one of the things we found about from the story of the Exodus is not only does God hear, but He also looks. And humanity hid from God. They were aware of the break in that relationship. They hid from Him out of shame. But God comes looking. God comes looking. And as we heard in the story, the Exodus a few weeks ago, when the kind of really kind of quite beige words are translated from the Hebrew, where it says God heard the cries of the slaves. This isn't a kind of, oh, I heard you. This is a guttural, whole body reaction to a crying out of a nation and a people that He has chosen. So God looks, and God has a physical, emotional response. Jump a little further into the narrative, we have the story of Abraham. Come and worship me, and I will be your God, and you will be my people. He's called out of his family, called out of where he lived in, probably would be around, I think it's around Iraq, towards a promised land to be a covenant people, a people that will be his representative on earth, that will be a nation of priests, that they will be a blessing to the world. He keeps repeating this promise throughout Genesis to Abraham. Excuse me. He keeps repeating these promises. And as it goes through the story, we have also the Lord's covenant with Abraham that is from Genesis 15. This is where we're going to pick it up on page 15 of our Bibles. Chapter 15, verse 7. Verse 6. Abraham believed the Lord and credited to him his righteousness. He also said to them, I am the Lord who brought you out of Ur to the Chaldeans and gave you this land to take possession of it. But Abraham said, Sovereign Lord, how can I know that I shall gain possession of it? So the Lord said to him, Bring me a heifer, a goat, a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon. Now, yet again, in the story, the biblical narrative, we have questions from humanity for God, and He responds in a really quite an odd way as we see it. Abraham asks the question, how will I know that I will gain possession of the land? How will I know my people will gain possession of this land in the establishment of this covenant between me and you? And God turns around and says, bring me a heifer, a goat, a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon. Now, because we haven't got the cultural baggage and glasses to read this properly, we don't see it. We just see it as an odd request. What it is for the time, is the establishment of a covenant. So there'll be this kind of this, let's say, a tribe who went to war with another tribe and they defeated them, and there was like a kind of an enactment of the relationship going forward between the tribe that won and the tribe that lost. And what they would do is take these slaughtered animals, and excuse me if you're easily offended or easily, but they used to split these animals in two along this kind of passage. It's like a little divot or a valley, and they used to lie the carcasses split into either side. And the establishment of the relationship going forward was between the tribe that won and the tribe that lost. And the conquering king walks through, because all they were at that angle, all the blood used to go onto the floor, and the conquering king used to walk through the blood towards the conquered king. In so doing, they would make promises of saying, you are now my people. Going forward, I promise to look after you. I promise to maintain our borders. I promise to protect you from any other people who might seek to damage you. I promise, and we used to make these protections, these things, and basically say, look, going forward, we need to establish how this relationship is going to go forward. At the end of which, the conquered king used to walk back through the blood to the conquered king, making promises on behalf of their relationship going forward between the conquered king and the king. They used to make promises, and we'll promise to obey you, we promise to pay our taxes, walking through this. It was an ancient Near Eastern process of establishing a covenant that had an obligation on both sides. This is the covenant that's established between God and Abraham, walking through the blood back again, both promising to maintain that relationship and the expectations that go with it. Fast forward to the story of Moses, and the fulfillment of this promise was the hearing of God of his people calling out to him in slavery. That actually they'd gone off and they'd abandoned their side of the relationship, which is how they ended up in slavery. But they wanted to come back. They called out, and the guttural response had God going, right, this needs sorting. The relationship was re-established because the people of Israel went, we need saving. If we look through the Bible, if we look through church history, all the way through, that narrative is the same. We have a covenant established between humanity, an individual, a church, a region, an area, where we are being committed to a relationship with God. But for whatever reason, that relationship has gone awry. And that actually the relationship has broken down. That these people who've committed, these individuals who've committed to a relationship with God, have fallen short. God hasn't changed. God hasn't changed the criteria for that covenant relationship. But we have. And throughout all our stories, if we're Christians, we could probably look back to times where actually we feel far from God. That isn't God's fault. That's ours. We can see times where churches have walked away from God's truth and his spirit. It's the church walking away. It's not God. And throughout this process, throughout all this time, throughout all this sermon series of looking at the Exodus and exile and now finally covenant, our challenge is simple. What do we want to do to walk back into that relationship with God? For some, you might be miles away from that, and it might take something massive, and the offer is there for myself or someone else to come and meet and pray these things through with you. To others, it's a daily thing, it's an hourly thing, that we need to re-establish that covenant with him. He is there. He is here. That's what we say at the start of services, or at the start of communion, when we use the liturgy. The Lord is here. His Spirit is with us. We need constant reminding of this. Whatever the situation, wherever we are, he's here. It's us who can't hear him. It's us who can't see him. Turn back to the light. Turn back to him. Back to his covenant. to re-establish that relationship with God. I hope you enjoyed this sermon series. I hope you enjoyed this reflection. It's going to be carrying on. Actually, there's going to be themes picked up probably throughout the walk up into Easter. But the ultimate kind of finish of this whole thing is we're going to be celebrating Passover on the Thursday, and we're going to have an early morning wake-up call on Easter Sunday morning out on Ealing Common, and we're going to be celebrating Easter together. This is our time to turn back to Him. This is our time to get back into that covenant relationship with Him. Don't miss that opportunity.